Okay, time to fess up, members of the human race. Someone's clearly done something really bad, so come clean. Why else would we have been subjected to this CGI monstrosity of a once great video game icon, unless some wise guy or girl had been offensive enough to incite the fury of ancient gods? So it's kind of old news now, admittedly, but this year's trailer for the Sonic movie is really, really bad. The human teeth, the weird eyes, the gelled fur, the body that's basically some person in a morph suit. The whole thing is a massive disaster on legs. Really weird human legs, probably. Even the most die-hard Sonic advocate would find it difficult to say that this is how they imagined their legendary blue hedgehog would look on the big screen. And it's this hugely loyal Sonic fanbase that we empathise with the most. I mean, haven't they suffered enough with the 3D era of the furry speedster, churning out disappointment after disappointment? Maybe that's why we've been cursed with this bizarre human hog, a physical manifestation of years of lackluster Sonic outings and wasted potential. Whatever it is, we've had more than enough time to reflect on it by now, if not entirely recover from it. And because we have since had the good news that every single scene featuring CGI Sonic is going to be redone before the film is released, we figured it might be worth putting something out there to give everyone a clear explanation of what Sonic truly is, lest the same mistakes are made. I'm Peter from Triple Jump, and here are 10 things you didn't know about Sonic the Hedgehog. Number 10. Sonic was a lab accident. Based on the movie trailer, I think we all had our suspicions. But seriously, trailer memes aside, video game Sonic had a pretty traditional superhero origin story. At least according to the Sonic comic series that ran from 1993 to 2002. Originally, Sonic was a regular brown hedgehog before he stumbled upon a lab owned by one Dr. O.V. Kintobor. I have no idea if I'm saying that right, but this guy certainly looks familiar. The kindly Kintobor took a liking to this little home invader and made him some sweet kicks to make him go faster. But Sonic ended up breaking the testing equipment, resulting in the accident that turned him blue. As far as comic book disasters go, it could have been a lot worse, I suppose. But the next day, the really quite lovely Dr. O.V. Kintobor suffered his own accident, inadvertently releasing the evil power from his research on chaos energy. And, you know, we're not really sure what happened to him after that. Wait, hang on. O.V. Kintobor? Oh my god! Number 9. The mascot mouse. So, the previous entry clears up the in-universe origins of the Hasty Hog, but what about the real-world creation of the classic video game legend? Well, in the early 90s, Sega wanted to make a new mascot that could challenge Nintendo's dominant Italian plumber. Their first attempt, Alex Kidd, wasn't that popular with the youth of the day, so Sega ran an in-house competition to create a new mascot. After many entries, it was designer Naoto Oshima's scribblings that were shortlisted, one of which was a blend of Felix the Cat's head on Mickey Mouse's body with boots inspired by Michael Jackson. Speaking of horrific lab experiments. After much back and forth with other designs which we'll cover shortly, it was this concept from Oshima that won out, and thus a star was born by the name of Mr. Needle Mouse. Yeah, not the best name, to be honest, and they almost stuck with this, given that Sega staff were worried that US audiences might not have known what a hedgehog was. But it's kind of ironic, really, in that it seems Sega were the ones who needed guidance on hedgehog knowledge. Developer Yuji Naka made Sonic run through underwater levels because he was convinced hedgehogs couldn't swim. Your move, US kids who don't know what a hedgehog is. Number 8, Sonic the Rabbit, almost. Remember when I mentioned the other designs about a minute ago? Well, at one stage, Sega were convinced that their new character was going to be a rabbit with big ears that could pick up and throw stuff. What the hell? A novel concept that hadn't been seen at the time, they eventually decided against this approach, focusing instead on a faster protagonist, one that could show off the technical horsepower of the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis if you're from the US and don't know what a hedgehog is. It's lucky, really, because they were going to name this bunny Feel the Rabbit. I mean, a mascot that sounds like the tagline for a range of sex toys isn't exactly family-friendly, Sega. God, you're not very good at naming things, are you? Another character who almost made top billing for protagonist was Dr. Robotnik, aka Eggman, aka another stupid Sega name. Depending on who you ask, Dr. Robotnik was meant to either be a veiled dig at rival mascot's portly frame and mustachioed face, or a caricature of Teddy Roosevelt, or maybe a bit of both. But again, 90s kids probably weren't that desperate to play as an old American president, and so several armadillos, chickens, and wolves later, they landed with this prickly blue fella. Number 7, Sonic's first appearance. Much like how Mario's first appearance was as Jumpman in Donkey Kong, Sonic's first outing was actually in someone else's game. In 1991, development of the first true Sonic game was well underway, and Sega knew it would be released later that year. But their arcade racing game, Radmobile, would pip it to the post with a little tease of the blue hedgehog. While it's a nice nod to an upcoming release, it wasn't the most flattering of debuts, showing Sonic as basically an air freshener swinging from your rearview mirror. New hedgehog smell, lovely. Strangely, even Sonic's home console debut was upstaged by a familiar but slightly terrifying cameo on the Amiga in The Adventures of Quick and Silver. This cheaply made game was quickly knocked up for a disc accompanying the Amiga Fun magazine and featured shamelessly stolen characters from titles like Bubble Bobble, Nebulous, and oh look, it's Mario's head stuck on a spring. Lovely. Moving on. Number 6, gotta go slow. The character known in some circles as the Blue Blur, famous for his fast-moving approach to life, actually had to be reined in somewhat by developer Yuji Naka and his team. If anything, early builds of the original Sonic the Hedgehog were too fast. While playtesting, they had found that, quote, different people had different perceptions of the game's speed, which led to disagreements amongst the team. On top of this, the high speeds on the Mega Drive game created a nauseating effect for some people if played for extended periods of time. Now, while motion sickness while playing as Sonic would probably be an authentically immersive experience, it wasn't a good look for Sega, so they slowed down the game to levels more manageable for players and the hardware. Number 5, Madonna, Sonic's human girlfriend. Look, we're not here to kink shame. You're allowed to get your rocks off in whatever legal way you want. But for anyone who's had the misfortune of playing through Sonic 2006 and witnessing the kiss between Sonic, an anthropomorphic cartoony hedgehog, and Elise, a human woman, well, you'll know that it's the kind of thing to make even the most sexually liberal of folk ask a few questions. Like, is Sonic technically dead here? Is it consensual? Why is it a human and a hedgehog? I'm so confused. You'll be pleased to know, though, or possibly horrified and disappointed to know, that this was all part of Sega's plan from the very beginning. Sonic was always to have a human girlfriend/admirer called Madonna, inspired by, well, you know who. Obviously, this never made it to the final game, as, once again, it wasn't deemed very kid-friendly at the time. Goddamn youth ruining everything. I mean, yeah, it was just a smart move. Good decision there, Sega. God, it would have been so weird and inappropriate, right? Really glad this didn't make it. Number 4, inspired by a ball in a tube. Before the kids started Fortniting and dabbling, we would play with Rubik's Cubes, and 2 paper cups with string in, or a ball in a tube. That's all we needed. It was good enough for us, and it was certainly good enough for developer Yuji Naka, apparently, as when he was developing a tech demo to perfect Sonic's trademark high speeds and fluid movement, he was inspired by this match made in heaven. The genius of the early games was in the techniques used to create that blistering pace, and the smooth rolling gradients of the Green Hill Zone with its famous loops were made possible after Naka developed an algorithm that helped a sprite move freely on a curve. The first prototype for the formula was essentially a platformer with a character rolling in a ball through a long winding tube. As for the gotta go fast mantra, the inspiration struck Yuji Naka after playing through Super Mario Bros. For all the the Warp Zone shortcuts, level 1-1 was unskippable, so seeing seasoned players blasting through this level at super speeds, Naka hit upon the idea of a more fast-paced platformer. Number 3. The two versions of Sonic 1. The game everyone talks about during regular Sonic meetups is the 16-bit classic Sonic the Hedgehog for Mega Drive/Genesis. But a second 8-bit version was also produced for the previous generation's Sega Master System, as well as the handheld Game Gear, proving that you don't always have to abandon old reliable as soon as a shiny new next-gen console hits the shelves. This version was something of a Sonic Lite edition, with fewer rings, more limited animations, and different graphics, with objects like monitors showing up as checkpoints instead of lampposts. That's all understandable given the hardware limits, although what's more damning is the lack of quality loop-de-loops in the 8-bit version, which, as we all know, is Sonic's bread and butter. Yuji Naka didn't go through the trouble of creating a complex algorithm just so you could throw away all the cool stunt loops, you know? The boss fights also seemed a little lacking in threat in the 8-bit version, with Dr. Robotnik just floating around waiting to get hit like a daredevil fly on a busy motorway. Yeah, in fact, it was probably for the best that you didn't know about this version. I'm sorry. Number 2. Hidden credits. The art of leaving hidden Easter eggs in games was of course popularised back in 1979's Adventure for the Atari 2600, when a developer who was disgruntled about the lack of credit employees were given for working on the game decided to add his own name into a secret room. It was fairly common practice back then for publishers not to acknowledge members of their dev team, and understandably, the people who put so much hard work into their creations weren't happy about this, hence the covert signatures in many retro games. Even Sega's early titles were guilty of this, Sonic being one of them. But if we've learned anything so far, it's that developer extraordinaire Yuji Naka finds a way. Naka managed to include names of everyone involved in the game's production on the screen that introduces the game, no less. How did he get away with such brazen behaviour? By placing black text on a black background, which is genius, except that, well, no one could actually see the names at all. However, you can of course use a cheat code to make this text visible. So there you go, a nice little credits Easter egg hidden right under the noses of Sega. F the man. I'm not allowed to swear, but F the man, F the system, F them all. And number 1, Rock Band Sonic. Now, it's well established that Sonic was a pretty cool dude, trademarked. He could run at the speed of sound, his sneaker game was on point, and I'm pretty sure he never looks at explosions, but just in case you thought you had a shot at being on his level, he was originally meant to be the lead guy in a rock band of badass animals. Starring Max the Monkey on bass guitar, Mac the Rabbit on drums, Sharps the Parakeet on lead guitar, and Vector the Crocodile on keyboard. Have we checked this? Is this right? And of course the boss hog himself on lead vocals. Step back everyone, because here comes Sonic Boom. Oh no, that's taken. Sonic Youth. Oh, damn it. The Sonics. Oh, come on. All right. How about the Sonic the Hedgehog band? Well, that's a bit on the nose, but it's available. Why. The plan was to have this ragtag group of rockers play an encore at the end of the game, probably with some blistering power metal guitar solos, but our old foe hardware limitations struck once again. That iconic opening jingle that goes took up 1/8 of the entire cartridge space, which meant that the band were dropped from the lineup. However, there was an unexpected comeback tour in store for the Sonic the Hedgehog band. Seriously, Sega, why are you so bad at naming things? Animated series Sonic Underground saw the fastest lead singer alive performing to sell-out crowds and taking on enemies with the power of rock and roll and a guitar that shoots lasers. Amazing. And that's our list, but what did we leave out? Let us know in the comments below. You can follow myself and Triple Jump on Twitter here, and if you want to support the things you enjoy, then check out the rewards on our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I've been Peter from Triple Jump, and thanks for watching.